The smoke rose from the burning colony like black fingers reaching toward the sky. Sergeant Daniel Hayes moved through the ruins with his rifle ready, stepping over broken walls and shattered glass. The smell of fire and death filled his nose. Behind him, 4 other soldiers followed in silence. New had been a beautiful place once. Daniel remembered seeing pictures of green fields and white houses. Now there was nothing left but ash and memories. They had come without warning. Their ships had appeared in the sky at dawn, and by noon the colony was gone. 3 years of war had taught Daniel many things. He knew how to fight, he knew how to survive, but he had never learned how to stop caring about the dead. Every body they passed made his chest feel heavy. "Keep moving," said Corporal Park from behind him. "We need to reach the Central District before dark." Daniel nodded but did not speak. There was nothing to say. They had arrived too late to save anyone. Now they were just cleaning up, looking for survivors that probably did not exist. The Central District was worse than the outer areas. They had focused their attack here, where most of the people had lived. Buildings had collapsed into piles of broken stone. Fires still burned in some places. Daniel saw toys scattered on the ground and looked away quickly. His squad spread out to search the area. Daniel walked toward what had once been a community center. The roof had fallen in, and one wall was completely gone. He was about to turn away when he heard something. It was a small sound, high and strange. Not human, but not quite like any sound he had heard before either. It was coming from beneath a pile of broken concrete and metal. Daniel stopped and listened. The sound came again. It was like crying, but different, softer, more scared. He knelt down and began to dig. The concrete was heavy, but he pushed it aside piece by piece. His hands started to bleed, but he did not stop. "Hayes, what are you doing?" had come up behind him. "There's something under here," Daniel said. "Something alive." Helped him move the larger pieces. After several minutes of hard work, they uncovered a small hollow space beneath the rubble. Daniel shined his light inside and stopped breathing. 3 small creatures huddled together in the darkness. They had scales that shimmered blue and green in the light. Their eyes were large and round, filled with terror. They were but tiny, children. The smallest could not have been more than a few months old. One of them was hurt. A deep cut ran along its side, and dark blood had dried on its scales. It made that crying sound again, pressing closer to the others. Raised his weapon immediately. "Step back, Sergeant!" Daniel did not move. He stared at the 3 small faces looking up at him. They were shaking so hard he could see their scales vibrating. "They're just kids," he said quietly. "They're the enemy," replied. His voice was cold. "In a few years they'll be soldiers. They'll be killing our people. They're not soldiers now. They're children. That's not our problem. Our orders are to secure this area. That means eliminating any presence." Daniel stood up slowly and turned to face. They had served together for 2 years. They had saved each other's lives more than once. But right now, Daniel did not recognize the man in front of him. "I'm not going to let you kill children," he said. His jaw tightened. "You're letting your emotions control you. This is war. We don't get to pick and choose who the enemy is." "Yes, we do. That's exactly what we get to do." Daniel stepped between and the hollow where the children hid. "The moment we start killing kids, we become monsters. Is that what you want? Is that what we're fighting for?" The 2 men stared at each other. Around them, the ruined colony was silent except for the crackling of distant fires. Finally, lowered his weapon slightly. "You're going to get yourself killed for some alien bobbies. You know that, right?" "Maybe, but I'll die knowing I did the right thing." A beeping sound came from the rubble. Both men looked down. One of the children had activated something, a small device attached to its clothing, a rescue beacon. The signal would bring adult to this location. "Swore, we need to leave. Now, they'll be here within the hour." Daniel shook his head. "You go, take the squad and get to the extraction point. I'm staying." "That's suicide." "I'm not leaving these kids alone. They're hurt and scared. If I go, they might die before help arrives." Looked at him for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "You always were too good for this war, Hayes. I hope whatever God you believe in is watching, because you're going to need all the help you can get." He turned and walked away. Daniel heard him gathering the others, heard their voices raised in confusion and protest. Then their footsteps faded into the distance, and he was alone. Daniel turned back to the children. The injured one was still crying softly. He knelt down and reached into the hollow, moving slowly so he would not scare them. "Hey there," he said gently. "I'm not going to hurt you, I promise." They did not understand his words, but something in his voice must have reached them. The crying slowed a little. The smallest one, a female with scales that were more green than blue, tilted her head and looked at him with curious eyes. Daniel pulled out his medical kit. He had no idea if human medicine would work on, but he had to try. Carefully, he cleaned the wound on the injured child. It flinched but did not pull away. When he applied the bandage, it made a sound that was almost like a sigh. Hours passed. Daniel sat in the rubble, guarding 3 enemy children as the sun moved across the sky. The smallest one had crawled closer and was now sitting near his leg, watching him with those strange, beautiful eyes. He thought about his life, his choices, the path that had led him here. He had joined the military to protect people. He had never imagined that would mean protecting. But looking at these 3 small creatures, he could not see enemies. He could only see children who needed help. The sound of ships filled the air. Daniel looked up and saw vessels descending through the smoke. His heart began to beat faster, but he did not run. Instead, he set down his weapon and raised his hands. Whatever happened next, he would face it. He had made his choice. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. His head hurt and his body felt strange. For a moment, he could not remember where he was. Then the memories came flooding back. The children, the ships, rough hands grabbing him before everything went dark. He was in a cell. The walls were smooth and gray, made of some material he did not recognize. There was no window, only a soft light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. A thin mattress lay on the floor, and someone had placed a blanket over him while he slept. His wounds had been treated. When he looked at his arms, he saw bandages made of something that felt like silk but glowed faintly blue. The pain was mostly gone, replaced by a tingling feeling that spread across his skin. For 3 days, Daniel saw no one. Food and water appeared through a slot in the door at regular times. The food was strange but not unpleasant. He ate it because he needed strength, not because he was hungry. He spent his time thinking about the war, about his squad, about the 3 small children he had protected. He wondered if they were safe. He wondered if anyone would ever know what had happened to him. On the 4th day, the door opened. She was the most beautiful and terrifying creature Daniel had ever seen. Nearly 7 feet tall, she moved with a grace that made her seem to float rather than walk. Her scales shifted between deep purple and midnight blue as the light touched them. Her eyes were gold, ancient and wise, and they looked at him as if they could see into his soul. This was not a soldier. This was something else entirely. "You are the human who saved my children," she said. Her voice was strange. It had layers, like many voices speaking at once in perfect harmony. Daniel felt it in his chest as much as he heard it with his ears. It made him want to listen, to pay attention, to understand. "Yes," he said simply. There was no point in lying. She studied him for a long moment. Then she walked into the cell and sat on the floor across from him, folding her long legs beneath her. It was such a human gesture that it surprised him. "I am Eth," she said. "I am a matriarch of the people. The 3 younglings you protected are my offspring. You saved their lives at great risk to your own. I am here to understand why." Daniel thought about his answer carefully. Because they were children, because they were scared and alone, because it was the right thing to do. Tilted her head. "Your people and mine have been killing each other for 3 cycles. You have seen destroy human settlements. You have lost friends and comrades to our weapons. Yet you looked at my children and saw only younglings in need of protection. This is not normal behavior for a warrior." "Maybe not, but it's who I am." She was quiet for a while. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "My children were not supposed to be on that world. I had hidden them there during a secret mission, a mission of peace. I was trying to open talks with human leaders to find a way to end this war, but within our own government learned of my location. They launched the attack without authorization, seeking to kill me and destroy any hope of peace." Daniel felt his stomach drop. "Your own people attacked the colony." "Yes, they did not know my children were there. When I learned what had happened, I thought I had lost everything. Then I received the rescue signal. I came as fast as I could, prepared to find their bodies. Instead, I found them alive and safe, guarded by a human soldier who had chosen compassion over hate. She leaned forward slightly. You do not understand what you have done, Daniel Hayes. In culture, life debts are sacred. When someone saves the children of a matriarch, they create a bond that cannot be ignored. There are ancient laws about this, laws that are older than the Dominion itself. What kind of laws? His eyes held his. I cannot simply release you. To do so would dishonor both of us. The debt must be paid in full. There is only one way to do this. She stood up and extended her hand toward him. I claim you as my protector. Daniel stared at her. I don't understand. A protector is one who guards a matriarch's house. It is not slavery, Daniel Hayes. It is a position of great honor. A protector stands beside the matriarch, defends her family, and shares in all the rights and privileges of her house. The bond cannot be broken except by death. But I'm human. I'm a soldier in the enemy army. You were a soldier. Now you are something else. The old laws do not speak of species or sides in a war. They speak only of honor and debt. You earned this place with your actions. It is your right to claim it. Daniel's mind raced. This was impossible. This was insane. He was supposed to be dead or imprisoned, not offered a position of honor among his enemies. What if I refuse? His expression did not change. Then you will remain a prisoner until the war ends, which may be never. You will die in this cell, unknown and forgotten. Your sacrifice will mean nothing. She paused. Or you can accept. You can live. You can watch my children grow. And perhaps, in time, you can help me build the peace I was seeking when this all began. Daniel looked at his hands. They still bore the scars from digging through rubble to save 3 small lives. He thought about his squad, about everyone he had left behind. I have a duty to my people, he said quietly. Nodded. I understand duty. But tell me, Daniel Hayes, when you stood between my children and your comrade's weapon, what duty drove you then? He had no answer. The truth was, he had not been thinking about duty at all. He had simply done what felt right. The ceremony took place 3 days later. Daniel stood in a great hall surrounded by matriarchs, their scales shimmering in colors he had no names for. Many of them looked at him with open hostility, a human in this sacred space. It was unthinkable, but spoke the ancient words, and her voice silenced all objections. She spoke of the old laws, of honor that transcends boundaries, of debts that must be paid. When she finished, she took his hand and pressed something against his left arm. Pain flared, brief but intense. When he looked down, he saw a glowing mark spreading across his skin. It was beautiful and alien, a spiral pattern that pulsed with soft blue light. The sigil of House Eth. He felt something change inside him. A warmth spread through his body, a connection he could not explain. It was as if something had been sleeping inside him, and now it was awake. Placed her hand over the mark. Welcome to my house, Protector. Welcome to your new life. Daniel looked out at the sea of hostile faces. He looked at this alien queen who had claimed him. He looked at the mark on his arm, glowing like a promise. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He was not the same man who had walked into that ruined colony. He would never be that man again. 6 months had passed since Daniel became the protector of House Eth. In that time, he had learned more about them than any human had ever known. Their world was different from anything he had imagined. Great cities rose toward purple skies, their buildings grown from living crystal rather than built from stone. Gardens filled with strange plants covered every surface, and music seemed to float in the air itself. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Daniel lived in a small room within his estate. It was simple but comfortable, with a window that looked out over an endless forest of blue trees. He spent his mornings learning the language, his afternoons studying their customs, and his evenings wondering what had become of his old life. The 3 younglings were his constant companions. El was the oldest, nearly 5 years old in human terms. He was serious and thoughtful, always watching Daniel with curious eyes. El was the middle child, playful and energetic, forever getting into trouble. And I, the smallest one, had attached herself to Daniel completely. She followed him everywhere, her tiny hand often reaching up to hold his fingers. They called him L, which was as close as they could get to his name. At first, the other servants and guards had looked at this with disgust. A human playing with matriarch's children. It was wrong, it was shameful. But as weeks turned into months, something changed. People saw how gentle Daniel was with the younglings. They saw how he made them laugh, how he kept them safe, how he treated them with the same love a father would show his own children. Slowly, the hatred in their eyes began to fade. Not all of it, but enough. Noticed the change. One evening, she found Daniel sitting in the garden while the younglings played nearby. She sat down beside him without speaking. "You are adapting well," she said finally. Daniel shrugged. "I don't have much choice." "You could have remained bitter and angry. Many would have." She watched her children running through the flowers. "Instead, you chose to find peace. That takes strength. It takes survival. If I let myself hate everything here, I would lose my mind." Turned to look at him. "But you do hate, don't you? You hate that the war continues. You hate that humans die while you sit in safety." Daniel's jaw tightened. She had seen through him easily. "Yes, I know this pain. I feel it too, in my own way. The war was never supposed to last this long. It was never supposed to become this terrible." Before Daniel could respond, I came running over and climbed into his lap. She babbled something in, pointing at a flower she had found. Daniel smiled and nodded, pretending to be impressed. "Watch them together. She loves you," she said quietly. "The feeling is mutual." That night, news came from the front lines. Human forces had been pushed back again. 2 more colonies had fallen. Thousands were dead. Daniel sat alone in his room and did not sleep. The political situation within the Dominion was growing more dangerous by the day. His decision to claim a human as her protector had made her many enemies. Some saw it as weakness, others saw it as betrayal. The leader of these enemies was a war marshal named. Daniel had seen him only once from a distance, was massive even by standards. His scales were the color of dried blood and scars covered his body from countless battles. He commanded the largest fleet in the Dominion, and his hatred of humans was legendary. Believed the only solution to the war was complete extermination. "Every human must die," he said. "Only then would they be truly safe." He began to move against House Eth. Political allies suddenly became distant. Resources that had counted on disappeared. Invitations to important gatherings stopped arriving. It was slow and careful, but the message was clear. The matriarch who had claimed a human was no longer welcome. One morning, called Daniel to her private chambers. Her face was troubled in a way he had never seen before. "There will be an attempt," she said without preamble. "An attempt on my children's lives. Cannot move against me directly. The other matriarchs would not allow it. But if my children die and I am seen as unable to protect them, my position becomes weak enough to destroy." Daniel felt cold anger spread through his chest. "When?" "Soon, perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow. I do not know the details. I only know that it will come." He stood up straight. "Then I will be ready." The attack came at midday, when the younglings were playing in the eastern garden. Daniel was there, as he always was, sitting on a bench and watching them run through the flowers. He saw the flash of movement before he understood what it was. A figure in dark clothing running toward the children with something bright and deadly in its hand. A plasma pistol, already charging. Daniel moved without thinking. He threw himself forward, his body between the weapon and eye. The plasma bolt hit his shoulder and burned through flesh and muscle. Pain exploded through him, worse than anything he had ever felt. He smelled his own skin cooking. But he did not fall. He grabbed the attacker's arm and twisted. The weapon dropped. Daniel's fist connected with the assassin's face once, twice, 3 times. The creature collapsed, unconscious. Guards came running. People screamed. Daniel stood swaying over the fallen attacker, his shoulder a ruined mess of blood and burned meat. I was crying behind him, unhurt. He fell to his knees. When he woke, he was in a healing chamber. Sat beside him, her face drawn with worry. "You saved her," she said. "That's my job. You almost died. Still my job." She laughed, though there was no humor in it. You are a strange creature, Daniel Hayes. Most beings value their own lives above all else. You throw yours away for children who are not even your own species. Daniel closed his eyes. His shoulder throbbed beneath the bandages. They are my species, he said quietly. Maybe not by blood, but they're mine now. I chose that when I dug them out of the rubble. Was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. Is afraid of what you represent. A human who loves children. It destroys everything he believes about your kind. That is why he tried to take them from you. He failed. Yes, and word of what you did is spreading. The human protector who bled for a matriarch's offspring. It is a powerful story. The door opened, and I came in slowly, holding something in her small hands. She walked to Daniel's bed and placed her forehead against his uninjured hand. It was a gesture of deep love and gratitude. Then she whispered something in human speech. She had been practicing in secret, he realized. You stayed, she said, her accent heavy but understandable. You always stay. Daniel felt tears in his eyes. He did not try to hide them. Always, he whispered back. I will always stay. The war entered its 5th year, and the galaxy was tired of death. Human worlds lay in ruins. Hive ships drifted empty through space. Both sides had lost more than they could count. The voices calling for victory had grown quiet, replaced by whispers of something that had once seemed impossible. Peace! Came to Daniel one evening as he sat watching the 3 suns set over the crystal towers. She had aged in the past months, not in body but in spirit. The weight of everything pressed down on her shoulders. I need to ask something of you, she said, something difficult. Daniel turned to face her. Ask! I want you to speak for us, to the humans. He stared at her. What? Peace talks are being arranged in secret. A small group from each side meeting on neutral ground. I will represent the matriarchs who seek an end to this war. But we need someone who can speak to the humans, someone who understands both sides. I'm a sergeant, a nobody. I have no training in diplomacy. Sat down beside him. You are not a nobody. You are a man who chose mercy when hatred would have been simpler. You saw children and loved them as your own. That makes you more qualified than any diplomat. Daniel shook his head. The humans will think I'm a traitor. They'll never listen to me. Perhaps they will see something else, a bridge between our peoples. She placed her hand on his arm. I am not asking you to betray your kind, Daniel. I am asking you to save them, both of them. He thought about it for days. He thought about Park, who had wanted to kill the children. He thought about the assassin who had tried to murder I. He thought about all the death and fire that had consumed 2 civilizations. In the end, the decision was simple. I'll do it! The meeting took place on a small moon far from any battle lines. Daniel arrived with a handful of guards. On the other side were 5 humans, led by a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much pain. Ambassador had lost her family to her attack in the 2nd year of the war. Her husband and 2 daughters had died when their transport was destroyed. Daniel knew this because he had asked to tell him everything about the people they would meet. Looked at him, the way had looked at those children in the rubble. Sergeant Daniel Hayes, she said, her voice was flat and cold. Missing in action for 18 months, presumed dead. Now we know the truth. You've been living with the enemy, playing house with the aliens who killed millions of our people. That's one way to look at it. Is there another way? Daniel stepped forward. The guards on both sides tensed, but he kept his hands visible and his movements slow. I found 3 children in the ruins of Nu, he said. They were hurt and scared. I wanted to kill them. I said no. How noble! It wasn't noble, it was human. He met eyes without flinching. I'm not asking you to I'm not asking you to forget what they've done. I'm asking you to consider something else. Peace might serve humanity better than endless war. His laugh was bitter. Peace with the monsters who murdered my daughters? Yes! The room went silent. Daniel could feel the tension like a physical weight. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. Stepped forward. Ambassador, I understand your pain. I almost lost my own children in this war. The attack that destroyed Nu was not authorized by the Council. It was launched by who wanted to destroy any hope of peace. His eyes widened slightly. You're saying your own people attacked without orders? I was on Nu that day. I was there to meet with human representatives to find a path toward ending the war. And his faction learned of my mission. They launched the attack to kill me and everyone who stood for peace. She activated a device and images filled the air between them. Records, documents, communications, proof of what she was saying. This war began with a mistake, continued. First contact between our species went wrong. Fear led to violence. Violence led to retaliation. Generations of hatred built on a foundation of misunderstanding. The images showed the beginning. A human exploration ship encountering vessels, panic on both sides, a weapon fired in fear, and then the cascade of destruction that followed. Neither side was innocent, said quietly. Neither side was guilty. We were both afraid, and fear made us into monsters. Stared at the images. Her face was still hard, but something behind her eyes had shifted. Even if I believe this, she said slowly, there are people on both sides who will never accept peace. People like this you mentioned. People who have lost too much to ever stop fighting. Yes, Daniel said, but there are also people who are tired of losing. People who want their children to grow up without the sound of explosions. People who would choose life over death if someone gave them the choice. He stepped closer, too. You lost your family, I know that pain, but think about this. Right now, there are children on both sides who haven't lost their families yet. Children who could grow up in a galaxy at peace. If we stop the war now, we save them. If we let it continue, we doom them to the same suffering we've already seen. Was quiet for a long time. You really believe peace is possible? She asked. I believe it has to be, because the alternative is extinction. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, if we keep killing each other, there will be no one left. The talks continued for hours, then days, then weeks. Slowly, painfully, the two sides began to find common ground. It was not easy. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight, but for the first time in 5 years there was hope. Then came. His fleet appeared without warning, dozens of warships surrounding the moon. His message was simple: surrender the traitors or die. This is the only response your kind understands. His voice boomed through the communication systems. Death to the collaborators, death to the peace seekers, death to the human filth that has infected our people. Daniel looked at, then at. They were trapped with no weapons and no way to escape. Get to the inner chamber, Daniel said. All of you, now. What are you going to do? Asked. He picked up a fallen guard's weapon. My job! Warriors came through the walls like a flood of death. They were the best the Dominion had. Soldiers who had fought in 100 battles. Killers who had been trained since birth to destroy anything in their path. They moved with terrible speed, their weapons already blazing. Daniel stood in the doorway of the inner chamber. Behind him, Ambassador and the diplomatic teams huddled together. He was one human against an army. He should have been afraid. He was not. The first warrior came at him fast, blade raised. Daniel ducked under the swing and fired twice. The warrior fell. The second and third came together. He killed one and broke the other's arm before shooting him in the head. More came, always more. Daniel fought like something from an old story. His movements were precise and brutal. Every shot found its target, every strike connected. The bodies began to pile up in the corridor. A plasma bolt hit his leg. He staggered but did not fall. Another caught his arm. He switched the weapon to his other hand and kept firing. The warriors hesitated. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, they found something else. A human who would not die. A single man who stood between them and their targets like a wall of flesh and will. What are you? One of them whispered. Daniel did not answer. He did not have the breath. Behind him was trying to contact loyalist forces. They were coming, she said. Help was on the way. He just had to hold the door a little longer. A little longer? Warriors charged again. Daniel killed 5 more before a blade found his side. He felt ribs break, felt blood pour out of him, but his body kept moving, driven by something deeper than pain or fear. He thought about about the way she pressed her forehead against his hand, about her voice saying, "You always stay." He thought about Park, who had wanted to kill 3 children in the rubble. He thought about his own parents, long dead now, who had taught him that strength meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. The warriors came and came and came. Daniel broke them, not easily, not cleanly, but he broke them. When the Loyalist forces finally arrived, they found him still standing in the doorway. His body was a ruin of plasma burns and blade wounds. Blood covered the floor beneath his feet. 23 warriors lay dead around him. He saw the reinforcements coming and allowed himself one small smile. Then he collapsed. Daniel woke in a healing chamber. This time, both and were at his bedside. They looked at him with the same expression, a mixture of awe and something that might have been fear. "You should be dead," said. "I get that a lot." "No, you don't understand. The healers said the amount of damage you took, any normal human would have died 10 times over. You kept fighting with injuries that should have been immediately fatal." Daniel tried to shrug, but his body would not cooperate. "I had something to protect." Leaned forward. "Has been captured. His forces have surrendered. Without their leader, they are scattered and weak. The peace talks. They will continue. Your actions, your sacrifice have changed everything." Her voice was thick with emotion. "Both sides saw what you did, a human who fought to protect and humans alike, a man who did not distinguish between friend and enemy, you simply protected." Nodded slowly. "I spent years hating your kind," she said too. "Then I spent months suspecting Daniel was a traitor. Now I don't know what to think anymore." "Perhaps that is the beginning of wisdom," replied. The peace treaty was signed 3 months later. It was not a simple document. It covered reparations, territorial boundaries, prisoner exchanges, and 1,000 other details that would take years to fully implement. But the killings stopped. The ships returned home. Families began to heal. They called it the Hayes Accords. Daniel was embarrassed by the name. He had just done his job, he said. He was not a hero, but no one listened. The story of the human protector had spread across 2 civilizations. Children on both sides grew up hearing about the man who had stood in a doorway and refused to let hate win. 1 year after the treaty was signed, Daniel walked through the garden of House Eth. His arms still bore the glowing sigil of his adopted house. His body still carried scars that would never fully heal. But he was alive, and that was more than he had ever expected. I walked beside him. She was growing fast now, old enough to begin her formal education. She talked excitedly about her studies, about the human exchange students who would soon be visiting, about everything she wanted to learn. "Elle," she said suddenly, "will you still be here when I am grown?" He looked down at her. Those wide eyes that had once stared at him from the rubble of new, so much had changed since then. So much had been lost and found. "Always," he said. "I promised, remember." She smiled and took his hand. Watched them from the terrace above. She had aged since the beginning, but there was a peace in her face now that had not been there before. The war was over. Her children were safe. The future held possibilities instead of certain death. Daniel caught her eye and nodded. It was a simple gesture, but it carried everything. Respect between protector and matriarch. Trust between 2 people who had risked everything for peace. She nodded back. Later that evening, a ship arrived carrying visitors from Earth. Among them was Park, now a captain in the peacekeeping forces. He had asked to be assigned to the cultural exchange program. He wanted to understand, he said. He wanted to see what Daniel had seen. The 2 men stood together in the garden as the 3 suns set. "I was wrong," said quietly. "Back in that colony, I was wrong." Daniel shook his head. "You were scared, we all were. But you made a different choice. And that choice changed everything." They watched the colors spread across the sky. Purple and gold and deep red, like nothing that had ever existed on Earth. "What happens now?" asked. Daniel thought about the question. He thought about the long road that had brought him here. About the children he had saved and the battles he had fought. About I and everyone who had trusted him. "Now we build something new," he said. "Something neither side has ever seen before. It won't be easy. There will be setbacks and problems and people who want to go back to war, but we keep trying. We keep protecting what matters. We keep choosing compassion over hate." He looked at and smiled. "That's all any of us can do." The sun set and the stars came out. Somewhere in the darkness, the future was waiting. and Daniel Hayes, human protector of House Eth, was ready to face it. He had shielded the enemy's offspring. He had been claimed by an alien mother, and in doing so, he had shown two species what humanity truly meant.